Have you ever wondered why your eyes are the color they are? Perhaps you've always seen it as a mere genetic detail, nothing more than a matter of biology. But for Carl Jung, nothing in your body is truly the result of chance. He believed that even the color of your eyes could hold symbolic meaning, subtle clues about your inner world, your temperament, and even the archetype you quietly carry through life. Your eyes, the way they reflect light, the depth of their hue, are far more than physical traits. They can act as a mirror to your unconscious. Jung's theories on archetypes and the collective unconscious open up a new possibility. The color of your eyes might be tied to a spiritual pattern, a silent resonance of who you truly are and why you were born this way. In this video, we'll explore how each eye color, blue, green, hazel, brown, can carry its own psychological signature, a pattern of energy, emotions, and soul intentions. But before we dive into the details, if you feel a connection to this quest for deeper meaning, subscribe to our channel. This space is for those who seek more than superficial answers, for those who want to understand themselves on a soul level. So, take a moment to look into your own eyes, because what you're about to learn might not only change how you see yourself, but also what your eyes have been trying to tell you all along. We live in a world that teaches us to look outward before looking inward. From a young age, we're conditioned to focus on appearances, on how things look, on how others behave, on how to fit in. But we rarely pause to ask what is looking through us, what quality lies behind our gaze, and what that gaze might reveal about who we are. Carl Jung often reminded us that the surface is never just the surface. The outer world, and even the body we inhabit, is shaped in profound, sometimes invisible ways by what he called the unconscious. And within that unconscious lies a hidden architecture of images, stories, and instincts, what he termed archetypes. These archetypes are not mere ideas. They are psychic blueprints, primordial energies that influence how we love, how we fear, how we grow, and how we sabotage ourselves. They manifest in our dreams, in myths, in the recurring patterns of our lives. But Jung also believed they could project onto the body itself, particularly in subtle traits like posture, facial expressions, and yes, even the eyes. If the body is a kind of canvas on which the unconscious can express itself, the eyes are one of its most profound works of art. The eyes as an archetypal symbol. Why do we instinctively say that the eyes are the mirror of the soul? Why can a single glance make us feel exposed or truly seen without a word? And why do we sense so much in someone's gaze before we even know their name? Jung would say it's because we're picking up something ancient, something beyond words, something that doesn't belong to a single life but to the entirety of human experience. In Jungian psychology, the symbol is the most powerful language of the unconscious. It's not literal, but it's never devoid of meaning. A symbol carries layers of significance that cannot be fully explained. It must be felt, lived, experienced, and the eyes are one of the most charged symbols in every culture on Earth. In mythology, eyes are often associated with truth, power, danger, seduction, divinity. The all-seeing eye, the evil eye, the third eye, the eye of Horus. In every tradition, eyes are portals between worlds, between individuals, between the conscious and the unconscious. What if the specific color of your eyes, their hue, intensity, depth, carried not just biological data but also symbolic clues about your inner architecture? This isn't about fortune-telling. It's not about saying that all people with green eyes are one way, or those with brown eyes are another. Instead, it's about asking a different kind of question. What psychological pattern might be expressed through the symbolic tone of your eyes? Carl Jung believed in the fundamental unity of body and psyche. He saw the body not as a shell, but as a living expression of the soul's landscape. According to him, the way we move, speak, breathe, and even fall ill is often shaped by unconscious material. That's why Jung explored dreams, slips of the tongue, physical symptoms, even astrology. Not to define people, but to examine how symbolic systems reflect inner dynamics. He would likely argue that no aspect of your appearance is entirely random, especially when it resonates across generations, families, or lineages. So when we ask, "Why do I have these eyes?" we're really asking, "Why am I here? And what do my eyes say about what I carry within?" In this light, the color of your eyes becomes an invitation to explore what energy might flow through you, not because someone assigned it to you, but because your soul may have chosen it as part of your psychological language. The symbolic meaning of color. Before we look at eye colors as categories, we must understand that color itself is symbolic. Across all cultures, colors evoke emotional and psychological associations. Blue, clarity, coolness, depth, longing, spirituality. Brown, earth, stability, nurturing, warmth. Green, growth, change, vitality, transformation. Gray, mystery, neutrality, balance, introspection. Hazel, complexity, multiplicity, duality. Black or very dark eyes, depth, intensity, shadow, power. These are not fixed definitions, but vibrations. Each color resonates with certain archetypal fields, just as seasons, elements, or moon phases do. So, if your eye color aligns with a certain symbolic tone, it might suggest you carry that energetic imprint in your psyche, not as a rigid label, but as a starting point, a symbolic lens through which you can better understand your patterns. Jung's work constantly emphasized this. We are not a single entity, we are a multiplicity, but each of us has a few dominant themes, archetypes that shape our personality, our pain, our gifts. And these themes often show up in how we express ourselves, how others respond to us, and yes, even how we look. So, let's return to the mirror. The next time you look into your eyes, don't just ask if they look tired today. Ask what is trying to speak through them. Are they piercing, soft, curious, guarded? Do they feel like they're hiding something or revealing something deep? That feeling, that inner quality, may be more important than the color itself, because even among blue eyes, there are infinite variations. Even among brown eyes, some are rich and warm, others deep and commanding. Your experience of your own gaze, what you feel, matters most. That's how Jung would approach it. He didn't believe in stereotypes. He believed in symbols and in the unique dance between your conscious life and the archetypal forces working beneath it. In the next part of this journey, we'll start exploring how different eye colors may correspond to archetypal energies, not as rules, but as reflections of the inner stories you're living, sometimes without even realizing it. What does it mean to carry the gaze of a seeker? What lies behind an alchemist's eyes? How does a guardian see the world? What makes some eyes magnetic and others feel invisible? These are the questions we'll begin to unravel. Not to reduce you, but to reveal the invisible patterns within you. Because in the end, your eyes are not just how you look at the world. They're also how the world begins to understand who you are. Now that we've opened the door to the symbolic world of eyes, it's time to begin the descent into the meaning each eye color might carry. Not just physically, but psychically, spiritually, and energetically. These are not fixed labels. You're not being told who you are. Instead, you're invited to recognize, to see something you may have always sensed, but never fully named. Let's begin. Blue eyes, the seeker, the mystic, the inward gaze. There's something striking about blue eyes. Whether they pierce like ice or are soft like the sky, they hold a certain distance, a space, a question. They seem to look through the world rather than directly at it, as if searching for something just beyond the horizon. Symbolically, blue eyes resonate with the archetype of the seeker. Jung described this pattern as the part of us that longs for the unseen, that refuses to settle for superficial answers. The seeker wanders between worlds, one foot in reality, the other in mystery. People with blue eyes may carry an innate inclination toward introspection, longing, and meaning. From a young age, they may have asked questions others avoided. Why am I here? Why do people lie? Why does this all feel so heavy sometimes? This longing can make them emotionally deep, even if they seem calm or detached on the outside. Many people with blue eyes have a kind of emotional radar, an ability to detect subtle shifts in energy, mood, or tone in others. But instead of reacting quickly, they often withdraw inward to process. They live not on the surface but in the underlayer of thoughts, feelings, perceptions. Jung might say this correlates with a dominance of the intuitive or feeling function, a person who finds meaning in symbols, music, silence, and solitude. But every archetype has its shadow. The seeker can get lost in the search, never feeling satisfied, always chasing the next answer. They may struggle to be fully present as their mind is often in the past, the future, or some idealized reality. They may also wrestle with emotional loneliness, a sense that others don't see them or, worse, don't want to. Their depth can become a burden when the world around them demands small talk and shallow goals. Learning to trust their inner world without needing external validation makes them luminous. They stop searching for a place to belong and start creating it. Their gaze no longer asks for understanding. It becomes an invitation for others to go deeper too. In blue eyes, it's not just about light, it's about clarity. And when that clarity turns inward, the seeker becomes a mystic, a soul that doesn't just seek meaning but becomes meaning. Brown eyes, the guardian, the grounded soul, the energy of earth. Brown eyes are often overlooked. Because they're common in many parts of the world, they're rarely seen as unique. But symbolically, brown eyes are among the most powerful because they embody the energy of the earth itself. In Jungian terminology, they resonate with the archetype of the guardian or protector, an energy of stable, grounded strength, the one who stays when others flee, who listens before speaking, who builds, protects, and nurtures, quietly, steadily, loyally. People with brown eyes often radiate a solid presence, something to lean into. They're often the emotional rock in their families or relationships, even if they don't want to be. Others naturally come to them for comfort, advice, help, and they give without asking for much in return. This reflects a deeply rooted maternal archetype, regardless of gender. Not in the literal sense of raising children, but in the psychic function of holding emotional space. Brown-eyed people may absorb the moods and needs of those around them, almost unconsciously, learning early to soothe, support, and persevere. But the guardian carries a heavy burden. Their constancy often comes at a cost. They may suppress their own needs to keep the peace. They may become emotionally invisible in their own stories, so used to giving that they forget how to receive. They may stay in relationships or jobs long past their expiration date because they feel responsible. Jung warned of the danger of merging too completely into a role, even a noble one. For brown-eyed souls, the journey is about reclaiming their inner fire, realizing that being strong doesn't mean being silent, that loyalty shouldn't mean self-abandonment, that they can still be a source of grounding without losing their voice. When they do this, they become more than protectors. They become healers, not because they absorb pain, but because they transform it into wisdom. Brown eyes don't shout. They don't need to. Their power lies not in flash, but in depth. They're not light like fire. They're deep like soil. And from that soil, whole forests grow. Green eyes, the alchemist, the bridge between worlds. Green eyes are rare, and they feel that way. There's something magnetic, almost hypnotic about them. People often describe green eyes as mysterious, intense, or wild. But this mystery isn't accidental. It reflects a unique psychological blend. Symbolically, green is the color of growth, balance, and transformation. It lives between blue, cool, emotional, introspective, and yellow, warm, fiery, assertive. Likewise, people with green eyes often live between worlds. In Jungian language, green eyes resonate with the archetype of the alchemist, the one who transforms pain into strength, shadow into light, instinct into insight. These are not people who live passively. They feel things intensely. Their emotions, desires, intuitions are charged. But unlike a pure warrior or a pure mystic, the alchemist holds both fire and water. They embody paradox. Green-eyed souls often go through cycles of death and rebirth in their lives. They may experience intense inner transformations, moments when everything they thought they were falls apart, only to reassemble into something stronger, truer, more integrated. This is not an easy path. The alchemist must face the shadow again and again, sometimes in the form of depression, anxiety, identity crises, or heartbreak. But each time they emerge on the other side, they carry a deeper truth. They may be drawn to healing, art, psychology, spirituality, anything that allows them to connect opposites and create wholeness. But the shadow of this archetype is instability. They can become addicted to transformation, always stirring things up, fearing stillness. They may provoke or push others emotionally, unconsciously trying to awaken something in them. They may suffer from an emotional intensity they can't always control. Their journey is about realizing that alchemy doesn't require chaos, that peace can be as powerful as passion, that integration isn't about killing parts of themselves, but weaving them together. When a green-eyed person consciously walks this path, they become magnetic, not for attention but for authenticity. They're rare, not because of how they look, but because of what they carry. The ability to hold light and shadow in a single breath. In the previous part of our journey, we explored the archetypes behind the three most commonly recognized eye colors: blue, brown, and green. Each, in its own way, reveals a distinct psychological tone, a resonance with certain patterns of energy, emotion, and inner purpose. But not all eyes fit neatly into categories. Some shimmer between shades. Some hide their story beneath layers. Some seem to hold a darkness so deep they appear to gaze into the unknown. And Jung would say, the unknown has meaning. In fact, it's in the unknown that transformation becomes possible. Let's now turn to those eye colors that often draw less attention but may hold some of the richest symbolic material: hazel, gray, and black. Hazel eyes. The shapeshifter, the complex soul. Hazel eyes are hard to pin down. Some days they look brown, others green. In certain lights, they may shimmer with flecks of gold, amber, or gray. But it's this very variability that makes hazel eyes so fascinating from a symbolic perspective. In Jungian terminology, hazel eyes resonate with the archetype of the shapeshifter, a deeply complex energy capable of adaptation, rediscovery, and paradox. These people are often hard to define. One moment they may seem emotionally grounded, the next abstract. In one context, logical, in another, wildly intuitive. This isn't because they're unstable, but because they carry multiple facets, all equally alive. Jung wrote about the persona, the social mask we wear to function in the world, and he emphasized that the danger isn't in having a persona, but in becoming it. Hazel-eyed people, consciously or unconsciously, tend to see through personas, both their own and others. They're accustomed to masks and often drawn to taking them off. That's why so many people feel safe with hazel-eyed souls. There's something disarming about their gaze, something that seems to say, "You don't need to pretend with me." Yet paradoxically, hazel-eyed people can have deep struggles with their own identity. Because they are so many things to so many people, they sometimes lose sight of who they are without others' mirrors. They can become emotional chameleons, shifting tones and colors to survive or please. The shapeshifter's shadow is manipulation, confusion, inconsistency. If they fear rejection, they can become too fluid, too invisible. They may also wear their masks so well that even they forget they're wearing them. But when this archetype is integrated, when the hazel-eyed soul learns to embrace all parts of themselves, they become a bridge between worlds. They can understand vastly different perspectives, help others break free from rigid roles, and bring creative solutions where others see only chaos. They don't just live between identities. They embody synthesis, not as a performance but as a gift. In Hazel Eyes, it's not about choosing one truth. It's about holding multiple truths at once while still choosing love, presence, and growth. Gray Eyes, the observer, the sage in the shadows, the witness of patterns. Gray eyes are perhaps the rarest of all, not just in frequency but in presence. When you meet someone with truly gray eyes, there's often a pause, a sense of being studied, seen. Gray as a color is neutral, neither black nor white. It holds opposites, maintains tension, and doesn't demand attention. It absorbs rather than reflects. It waits, it calculates, it contemplates. In Jungian psychology, gray eyes resonate with the archetype of the observer, perhaps even the hermit or the inner sage. These are people who may feel like they've been watching the world from its edges for as long as they can remember. They don't rush into the spotlight. They don't react immediately. Instead, they analyze, question, observe. Their minds are often sharp, nuanced, philosophical. They may have a gift for recognizing patterns, not just in the outer world but in the inner life. They notice how things fit together, where they break apart, and what no one else sees. But this power comes at a cost. Because they see so much, gray-eyed people may struggle with overthinking, emotional detachment, or existential doubt. They can become cold, distant, even cynical, guarding their hearts because they've seen too many others misuse theirs. Jung described this type of psyche as dominated by the thinker, but warned that thinking alone cannot bring wholeness. It must be balanced by feeling, sensation, and intuition. The observer archetype is beautiful when it leads to wisdom, but dangerous when it becomes isolation. Gray-eyed people often carry a quiet pain, a sense that they were never fully meant to belong in one place. Their task is to learn that objectivity doesn't require distance, that presence can be both contemplative and warm. When they soften into their insight, when they share it rather than hoard it, they become powerful guides. They don't demand power. They don't seek followers, but people follow them anyway because true clarity is rare, and these souls often carry it within. Very dark or black eyes, the depth, the unseen, the keeper of the shadow. There are also eyes so dark it's hard to tell where the pupil ends and the iris begins. They're often called black, though no eye is truly black, just very dark brown, sometimes with hints of blue or red in bright light. But symbolically, the black eye represents depth, mystery, the void. In Jungian terminology, it aligns with the shadow itself, not as something evil, but as something unknown, powerful, untouched. People with very dark eyes often emit a palpable intensity before they're even seen. Their gaze is felt before it's perceived. There's something ancient, silent, even haunted about them. Others may describe them as private, intimidating, magnetic, or hard to read. This is because the dark-eyed soul often embodies the archetype of the witch, the mystery, the hidden power. This isn't a role they consciously play. They may not even realize it. But they often elicit a reaction in others without trying. People project their fears, desires, or judgments onto them, and they feel it. Jung warned that when an individual becomes a vessel for others' projections, they risk being misunderstood, ostracized, or unfairly idealized. The task is not to flee this role, but to integrate it, to understand why their energy triggers such strong reactions. People with very dark eyes are often emotionally intense beneath a calm surface. They may feel deeply, but express little. They may seem indifferent, but absorb everything. They are keepers of what is deeply unconscious, what is unsaid, ancestral, primal. Their danger lies in repression, in holding too much, in never letting light in. Their journey is about realizing that depth is not darkness, that what is hidden is not bad, only unknown. And when they learn to bring their insight into the light, not by force but by trust, they become something rare, keepers of transformation, not because they shine brightly, but because they are vessels that hold others in their fire. They're not here to shine. They're here to anchor. And in that anchoring, they can still entire storms. After all these colors and archetypes, one truth remains. The most powerful part of the eyes is not their hue, but their gaze. For the gaze is active. It's an expression of the psyche reaching outward, and that gaze carries a story, a pain, a hope, a curiosity, a protection, a wisdom. It's not neutral. It's a mirror of all you've been, all you've denied, and all you're trying to become. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, the unconscious material we repress, doesn't vanish just because we ignore it. In fact, it shows up most often in how we look at others, in the judgments we cast on them, in the people who attract or repel us without us knowing why. So, the next time you look into someone's eyes or contemplate your own, ask, what part of me is looking? Is it fear, longing, control, compassion? Is it my wound or my wisdom? Eyes may be colored by biology, but the gaze is shaped by experience, and it's in the gaze that the soul reveals itself most clearly. So far, we've established that eye color is not just a biological fluke. It can be a symbolic fingerprint, an energetic trace, a reflection of the archetypal forces moving within us. Blue, brown, green, hazel, gray, black. Each carries not just pigment but meaning. And yet deeper than color, there's something far more revealing: the gaze. It's the gaze that brings these colors to life, that conveys intentions, emotions, stories. And it's through the gaze that we both reveal and conceal who we truly are. Carl Jung taught that every human being is born with an unconscious, not just a personal unconscious filled with forgotten memories and repressed emotions, but a deeper layer, what he called the collective unconscious. This is the realm of archetypes, those universal psychological patterns that live in every human soul, regardless of culture, time, or origin. Archetypes are not stereotypes. They are energies, symbolic codes that shape how we navigate life. Jung believed each of us is born with a unique constellation of these archetypes. Some dominate, others hide, but all are present, waiting to be seen, expressed, or integrated. What makes the eyes such a powerful window into these forces is that they sit at the intersection of the visible and the invisible. They are visible organs, but they don't just see, they speak. They say what words cannot. They convey feeling, memory, motive. The gaze is where the soul meets the world. This is where the work of individuation begins. In Jung's view, individuation is the process by which a person becomes whole. It's a long, difficult, often painful journey of confronting all parts of oneself, especially those that have been rejected, repressed, or relegated to the shadow. It requires us to examine the personas we wear, the roles we play, the defenses we've built. It calls us to turn honestly inward and ask, what part of myself have I buried to survive? What emotions have I silenced to be accepted? What gift have I feared expressing because it would make me too different or not enough? And this is where eyes return as symbolic tools because, above all, how we look at ourselves, at others, and at the world shows whether we're still asleep in the unconscious or awakening to our truth. A gaze filled with judgment, cynicism, or suspicion often reflects an inner world at war with itself. A gaze that's soft, open, and steady often comes from someone who has made peace with their contradictions. You've met these people, even if you didn't know how to describe it. People whose eyes seem to hold something vast and silent. People who don't need to say much because their presence speaks for them. These are often souls who have walked through fire and come back, not burned but transformed. Their gaze isn't empty, it's full, not of performance but of presence. And this is one of Jung's greatest insights. We can only see in others what we've first seen in ourselves. This is the principle of projection. When we encounter something in another person that triggers us, whether through attraction, admiration, irritation, or hatred, it often shows us a part of our own psyche. So the gaze becomes a mirror, not just of who the other person is, but of what we're ready or unwilling to face within. For example, someone with piercing eyes may cause discomfort, not because of what they do, but because their energy confronts our defenses. Someone with warm, earthy eyes may evoke longing because they remind us of an emotional safety we never fully received. Someone whose eyes shift colors may stir confusion because they mirror our own inner ambivalence. In this way, the color and quality of eyes become activation points, keys that unlock deeper layers of self-awareness. When we ask what we feel when certain people look at us and what we feel when we look at them, we begin to enter symbolic territory. Jung would say that at that moment, we're engaging with the unconscious, and if we stay with the discomfort instead of fleeing it, something begins to shift. This is why spiritual traditions worldwide have long emphasized eye contact in rituals, initiations, and meditations. In some cultures, a teacher or guru imparts wisdom not through words but through the eyes. In others, gazing into a mirror is used as a way to meet the deeper self, or even summon the hidden self. The practice of eye contact between two people in silence is known to dissolve social masks and evoke profound emotions, even tears, without a single word exchanged. Why? Because the gaze bypasses language. It speaks directly from soul to soul. It sidesteps the ego and reaches the archetype. And when we understand this, something shifts. We stop focusing so much on what others see when they look at us and start asking, what is looking through me? Am I looking at the world through the eyes of my wounded child, the eyes of an abandoned lover, the eyes of an overcompensating perfectionist, the eyes of an anxious critic, or the eyes of a healed adult, an integrated being, one who no longer hides from themselves? When we change the archetype behind our gaze, we change our life. This is where Jung's concept of the wounded healer becomes especially relevant. The wounded healer is someone who has suffered but, instead of being destroyed by their pain, uses it to heal others. In their gaze, you find empathy, not pity, strength, not hardness, compassion, not condescension. And many people with intense or unusual eyes carry this archetype. Others may comment on their eyes without realizing that what they're sensing is the soul behind them. A soul that has walked through darkness and emerged carrying light. But there's another element. The gaze is not just how we express ourselves, it's also how we choose to witness others. Do we see others as threats, objects, tools, rivals, distractions? Or do we see them as souls, mirrors, stories unfolding? Jung said that to truly see someone, we must free ourselves from the projections we place on them. We must learn to hold them in a symbolic space, acknowledging that they too are shaped by forces both visible and invisible, that they too are living a myth, consciously or not. And when we do this, when we allow our gaze to become a vessel of understanding rather than judgment, we begin to participate in healing, not just our own but others. The gaze becomes medicine. It becomes sacred. So, as we reach this point in our journey, let's take a moment to reflect. How do you look at the world? How do you look at others? How do you look at yourself? Is your gaze filled with haste, fear, or comparison? Or is it softening, shifting into curiosity, acceptance, clarity? You don't need the right eye color to carry wisdom. You don't need rare eyes to have a rare heart. Color may be symbolic, but the gaze is transformative. And eyes are not what make you powerful. It's the consciousness behind them. That's what Carl Jung would want us to remember. Behind every eye is a myth trying to unfold, a pattern trying to resolve itself, a shadow seeking to be seen, not condemned, a light longing to return. You were given your eyes not just to see but to understand, not just to observe but to awaken. And now that you know this, the question arises, what will you choose to see next? You came into this world with a gaze no one else carries, not because of your eye color, but because of the soul behind it. And perhaps, just perhaps, that gaze has quietly shaped every connection, every silence, every moment of awakening you've ever known. Carl Jung believed that when we become aware of our patterns, we gain the freedom to change them. And now that you've looked deeper into your own eyes, not just as organs of sight, but as symbols of existence, you've already taken the first step. Because when the soul begins to see itself, it never stops. Your eyes don't just look at the world, they reveal the one who dares to witness it.